$70 billion. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I click on his account, and then all of a sudden I see, when Xbox bought Bethesda, they had like the same Xbox and then Bethesda and then their games. I see the Activision Blizzard thing. I'm like, wait, hold up. No way. I found that out so early that when I looked up Xbox on Google, nothing was there. I had to wait a couple minutes until Phil Spencer retweeted it. I was like, what the? That's unbelievable. That shit was unbelievable.
I'm not even too sure who told me. I don't know if it was you or I don't know if it was Classic Games, but I saw the screenshot. That was the first one I saw, right? And I was just thinking, wait, what is all this? And then I just went straight to Google's like to confirm, because I'm thinking like, nah, this is a troll. Like someone's playing games with me. Like this can't be happening. But it did happen. Microsoft has announced that they are looking to purchase Activision Blizzard. And this kind of set everyone into a frenzy, because the crazy thing is this year, I was talking to these guys earlier and I was telling them, you can't stop Horizon Forbidden West from doing anything at this point in time. Like there's no really mindshare you can take away from that game.
No, yeah.
And we were talking about like, okay, maybe Dying Light 2, maybe, Elden Ring. I was like, yeah, but it's not really going to work because Horizon is that big of a game. But if you had announced this the day it drops, I think you shut down Horizon for sure. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have, I'm not gonna lie, I do have some reservations, and I've been going back and forth. And Dan, I watched your video, right? And you broke it down really well. You did, but I feel like you almost kind of affirmed certain things I was thinking. But let's get to the first point, which is how did you guys feel when you heard this news? Ken, we'll start with you.
All right. So my initial reaction was, obviously, I think like many people, what is this real? Am I looking at this correctly? Like, didn't Xbox, the same people that were saying, oh, they were shaming Activision Blizzard. Well, Bobby Kotick. I was like, no way. These are the same people. And then they just bought him. I was obviously everyone was blown away. I was just blown away. I couldn't believe what happened. And then obviously you start thinking about Game Pass and all that stuff, but I don't want to talk too much about it. But I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yeah,
let us know how you felt about this, because I mean, me and you, we talked at length at this, and so did Franklin. And funny enough, I think because I didn't understand the gravity of this. I knew it was big, because as soon as you see 70 billion or whatever the number is, it's big. Because I mean, if Bethesda is 7.5 billion, then obviously 70 billion. There's something there. But I couldn't really make sense of it. I was trying to like grasp, okay, I know with Bethesda, there's, we got Arcane, we got Starfield, we got Elder Scrolls, there's this game called Deadloop coming out soon. So it was easy for me to kind of like, to bring that all together and say, okay, 7.5 billion, I understand. But with this deal, it was a lot more difficult. But, maybe you can shed some light on that. Go ahead.
Man, I think that my immediate reaction was probably the same as both of yours, where I was like, this can't be real. Like I woke up late. I was planning on sleeping in. I was going to record an entirely different video that day. I was going to spread it out, edit it the next day, like take my time with it. And it's like, wake up, 30 notifications, like comments on YouTube and people tweeting at me like, hey, you might want to wake up and do something. And it's insane. I think that my immediate take on it was like, I don't know if it was necessarily the purchase that I would have made. Like, I don't think that it was. I think that there are definitely purchases they could have made that would have been more exciting for me personally. But on terms of like just sheer scale and the money that they're going to make off of this deal, I don't know that they could have made a bigger purchase.
Yes, I guess for me the first question is, why is this deal happening now? Why did Xbox go for why did Microsoft decide to go for Activision Blizzard? Does it have to do with all the allegations? Do you think this deal happens if there's no controversy? Ken, how about you?
Oh my gosh. That's a very good question why this deal is happening. It obviously I think the common one is probably because of just to boost Game Pass. I like that's the only thing that comes to mind. Obviously there's way more, but I just feel like this is all for the Game Pass plan and the Xbox turning into kind of getting out of just, yes, they're always going to be known for gaming, but I think this is more of an entertainment thing where now, going back to what Sean Layden was saying with gamers, the console space, I think this will now be able to expand Xbox into becoming to be able to rival stuff like movies, TVs, music. I don't think gaming could get to that soon, but I think this is more of a push. Moves like this is more of a push to get there, because again, the console family is like 160 million players. With this deal, I think the more assets they have, the more games, the more stuff they have, they can allow that, especially with streaming in the future, how that's going to come. I think that's what was the primary motivation for this deal, but that's just speculation for me.
No, yeah. I think it's a good shout, to be honest. The entertainment side of things. And Dan, would you agree with that, or do you think there's a little bit more than just games involved in this?
Man, I mean, there's definitely a lot involved with this. I mean, like, to go back to the original question of like, does this happen without the controversy? Like, does this have something to do with that? I think absolutely. Like that has to be a factor in this, right? Is what was it, like 3 weeks, a month ago? Xbox was tweeting out like, we're reevaluating our situation with Activision Blizzard. And it was like, apparently that meant buying them. They put on the Infinity Gauntlet and they were like, guess I'll have to fix this myself. I don't know what that situation was. I do think that, like, because I did a video a while ago where I broke down like every single publisher and what I thought the likelihood of them being bought by Microsoft was, because there were so many rumors going around that it was like everyone's talking about everything at this point. And I said in that like I just didn't think, like, buying Activision Blizzard would be a big deal for anyone who could do it, but like I didn't see any reason for them to sell. They have Candy Crush and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. Like, they make so much money that it doesn't really matter. Like, their stockholders or shareholders are probably 100% fine, but then all this controversy starts coming and their stock starts dropping and people start doing walkouts. And like, I think it was like, what was it, Sledgehammer or one of the Call of Duty studios, like their QA team quit or something, and like just all this stuff happening. I think that it like spooked the shareholders, and I think they were like, well, then now's as good a time as any to get out of here.
I'm gonna move away from that just real quick. How did Bobby manage to keep that position still?
Man,
because he's good. He brings in so much money for them.
Yeah, but I would have thought that at this situation, like, it's just untenable. Like, you need to get rid of him, but for some reason he still manages to be there, and that's already coming by surprise. Like, he survived this, and I think at the end of the day he's probably laughing. Like, yeah,
oh, absolutely, he's laughing.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this fat paycheck and leave, and oh god, like, it's not that's not the best way for him to go.
The bad lining to this is like that Bobby's gonna get a payout, but I don't know. Honestly, I think if they weren't purchased, he probably would have just stayed CEO for the foreseeable future, like until he retired, because the shareholders, like, they had Bobby's back for whatever reason. Like, they were just super behind him, except a small group that was, obviously very done with him and probably going to sell their shares otherwise. But like, it's bad that he gets a payout, but it's also good that, like, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of tweets and stuff from people who work at Activision Blizzard Studios being like, this is great. Like, we're really excited about how the culture of these studios is going to change. which, you know, this is not something that Xbox typically does. Normally, like when they bought Bethesda, one of the things that they specifically said was like, we're looking to purchase studios that already have a good culture and are already good functioning studios that we don't have to come in and like tell them how to act and how to be. And this is the exact opposite of that, where it's like us purchasing them might be the only way to turn this ship around.
Yeah, I imagine it's a clean house. As soon as like I don't know, I think more firings and all that kind of stuff is gonna come through. I don't see a situation where like Xbox takes this and they kind of like, you know, do a little bit of hands up. I think they go straight back. They go straight in. They fix everything. More people leave. I mean, it just makes sense at this point in time. You don't really trust what Activision has been doing. And the same way we heard, like, you know, hey, Bethesda is going to be like self-managed. Like, we ain't going to really do much. We're going to let these studios do the thing. I think with Activision, there's a lot more people watching. I think, you know, Phil and the guys are like scrutinizing them a lot more. And it's good. It's great because, you know, the kind of stuff, the stories you're hearing is just ridiculous. I was telling some of my friends and it was, yeah. I mean, let's not repeat it here. Let's stay on course. All right. So
wait, hold on. Real quick. Are you controlling the music, Ty?
Yeah, is it too loud, man?
Yeah, just turn down like a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. How's that?
A little bit up. A little bit.
A little bit up?
There we go.
Say
perfect. Yeah,
okay,
no,
cool.
Before, yeah, it was down, but then you turned it a little too down, a little bit too much down, and then now it's perfect. Now it's perfect. Yeah, what were you saying?
Dan, I'm gonna go straight to you, and you know, because you touched on this a lot in your video, so you're probably the best one to explain this.
Okay.
What does Microsoft get from this deal?
So much, right? Like this acquisition would not have cost that much if it wasn't worth it. You know, you're looking at 10 studios, like 10 named studios, right? And each of those studios, I think, has multiple teams in multiple locations, right? Like even the support studios, like I think it was Demonware, has 3, right? So just a huge amount of just full workforce. Then you're getting some of the most popular IPs in the industry, right? You're getting Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Starcraft, Spyro, Crash. Like the list just continues to go on. Like the list of IP is ridiculous. And then even just beyond pure content, you look at it and it's like, okay, well now they own like the Major League Gaming license, and they own the majority of games that are played as a part of esports, and they own a specific studio that is entirely designed around creating online networking and like doing things, you know, to make multiplayer games run better. It's like, well, that's exactly what Microsoft does all the time, so that's going to help them a lot. Like, and then you look at just like King, which is I think part of the acquisition that people just kind of glaze over, because most people who would be talking about this acquisition don't really probably care much about mobile gaming, but like Candy Crush makes nonstop money. Like there are 5 billion moms and grandmas spending money on this every single day, right? It's insane.
Yes, from that perspective, you know, and when you laid it out like that, it started to make sense to me, right? And I was thinking, okay, you know, 7, now that number makes a lot more sense. But, and then, you know, I'll go to this, like I saw this, I was thinking about it a little bit more because I wanted to make a video on it, because prior to this, I would have said Sony's, you know, they're still on top. Microsoft is getting really close, but Sony is still in a very, very dominant position. And there was this guy who posted this comment, and he was saying how Sony's done, they need to respond, you know, they're finished. And I did push back. I don't know, I just felt the need to push back. And the first thing I said was that do PlayStation fans actually care? Now I'm gonna play a little bit naive for a second, right? I think you guys could maybe, you know, convince me.
Sure.
So I was talking to one of my friends, and the thing he said is like, oh, this is big, this is big, this is big. And I said, okay, big for who? I mean, I know it's big for the industry, it's big for Microsoft, it's big for the PC side of things, it's big for it's big for the the major league games. It's big on so many different levels. They wanted it into the mobile market, now they got it. They wanted a legacy, now they got it. They have, in terms of putting their fingers in everything, like they got that. Sony's primarily focused on consoles, on the console side of things. Yeah, a PlayStation gamers really upset at this. And he's a PlayStation gamer, so I asked him, like, are you upset? And he's like, oh, of course, this sucks. They need to do it. And I go, okay, fine. What IP did they purchase that has you so upset, apart from Call of Duty? And he couldn't name one. And I told him, I said, Sony sees this as a threat, but would they have seen? Because if we look at the market cap, it's 70 billion, right? You could have bought Capcom, Sega, you could have bought EA and take two with that. And I said, if Microsoft has the rights to put Red Dead Redemption 3 Game Pass day and date exclusive, Grand Theft Auto 6 Game Pass day and date exclusive, Persona, throwing Sonic, throwing Capcom's IP, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, these very console-centric games, do they see that more as a threat than Activision Blizzard? Because the thing about the Blizzard thing is, for me, it's Microsoft saying, now we're Major League, now we're in the mobile space. But Sony's primarily concern right now is the console space. So I feel like to them it was a good move, but it wasn't the best move. It might have been the best move from Microsoft, but I think to Sony they're thinking, all right, fair enough. You just put 70 billion on something, which is good, but does it really get to us that much? I think the thing they really miss is Call of Duty, and that's what I was trying to relate to some people. We had some back and forth, but the thing is, they could never and one guy made a good point. It's like, yeah, but the PC market, the PC market is big, but like if you're PlayStation / PC gamer, nothing changes for you apart from the fact that maybe you get Game Pass PC. But that doesn't stop you from getting God of War. That doesn't stop you from getting Horizon. So I'm asking him again, like, so how does this affect you? How does this affect PlayStation gamers in a negative way? Am I talking smack? Someone tell me. Someone let me know.
No, you're
no,
not.
Honestly, like,
oh yeah. You go.
Sure. So no, I don't think you're talking smack. Honestly, I think that like this is a blow to PlayStation. Like we've seen it already in their like stock prices dropping and all that kind of stuff. It'll go back up. It's just reactionary, but for the most part, like, I think PlayStation's probably fine. Like, they're still going to make all the really good games that they're going to make. They're going to still keep making, third-party deals and all that stuff. I don't think PlayStation necessarily has to worry. Like, the people who are like, oh, Xbox is won, like, it's all over, PlayStation should get out of, or like, PlayStation's dead. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's, PlayStation is so ingrained in the games industry at this point that, like, they could have absolutely no first party games come out for like 2 years and they would probably still be fine. Like that's just the fact of the matter, right?
It's still second.
Yeah. And like, it is a blow to them though, like not having Call of Duty on your platform, assuming that that's what's going to happen. Like that's big, right? Even smaller things like, Crash Bandicoot is a franchise that is fairly heavily associated with PlayStation, and that's not going to happen anymore. So it's like, now that's an Xbox thing. But I think that's, I think that's sort of almost by design. I don't think that Xbox, makes their decisions based on like, how can we hurt PlayStation the most? You know what I mean? I think that they were just like, what can help us the most? And Xbox has been looking to sort of expand and be more dominant in the mobile marketplace and the PC marketplace. And if you get Candy Crush and World of Warcraft, like that's a pretty good way to do that. Yeah. So I think that it's less like, how does this hurt PlayStation, and more, how does this benefit Xbox? And that's honestly, I think, the best way for it to go. It like if Xbox bought Square Enix and all of a sudden like all of these Final Fantasy games and all of these games that are very heavily like skewed towards PlayStation, everyone really associates with PlayStation, are just not there anymore, then that I think would honestly upset more people.
Here's the reason why I disagree with both of you guys in terms of how big of a blow this is. Ty, going back to what you were saying, Sony is about the console space, right? But I feel so bad for Sony right now because what's going on with PlayStation 5s? PlayStation 5s are struggling to sell because of the shortages. So now they have to go back to making PlayStation 4s. With that in mind, this is a little off topic, but it's not. On an NPD report, Ratchet and Clank was an exclusive and was a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and that didn't sell that well because of obviously not a lot of people having PlayStation 5s. What was selling was Miles Morales. That was for both, but it was both, and it was the launch for it. So if Sony is all about the console market, and right now we know in the beginning of consoles, the new generation of consoles, they really rely on third-party games until they can get something going with their first party. Sony has done a lot better job this generation, I feel like. I think the pandemic would have, if the pandemic wasn't a thing, they would have released both God of War and Horizon earlier. But that's besides the point. But I think because Call of Duty is Call of Duty, and you got Overwatch, you got those two big games, I think it's enough to now pull people away from waiting to get a PlayStation 5.
Well, then
I think it's enough because if I can't get a PlayStation 5, it's been out for 2 years now, and they keep saying it's getting worse. And for those people, I don't know what it's like. For those people who are checking and they're just failing, they still can't get one when there's an Xbox Series S available, or there's PCs and stuff like, and I could just get Game Pass, where there's other options available. I think there will come a point in time where just like, especially for casuals, and Call of Duty is casual, it's very casual. I think it's just going to get to a point where I'm just going to buy an Xbox. I'm just going to buy that because
I think all this makes them
at that, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think it makes them like, I think it puts Microsoft in a very good position in the sense that like they become the de facto kind of console, because as a casual, you would gravitate towards that. You don't necessarily care about the deep games, the God of Wars or whatever. You care about the Call of Duties and the FIFAs. And then when you have those, maybe, there's this game with zombies and some guy who's a father figure to some girl. Okay, let me go buy that game and check it out. I think that's what happens. So I think that's really Sony's problem in this situation. But okay, you know what? Let's run through some IPs. Yeah. Does Call of Duty? No, let's start with Overwatch. Does Overwatch go multiplat, or does it stay multiplat, or does it go Xbox ecosystem?
Overwatch 1 for sure is staying multiplat. Like they're not going to pull it off anything. Overwatch 2, I mean, the weird thing is it recently also got delayed until after the acquisition would be finalized. So that does kind of add some question to it.
But you see, apparently Overwatch 2 is basically just a single player or a PvE campaign kind of thing tagged on. That's what I heard.
I think my bad to cut you off. I think a lot of people are getting that wrong with Overwatch 2. Like Overwatch 2, because of the live service and all that, a lot of people are like, why didn't they just continue Overwatch 1? I think people are putting that like false narrative because they think it's happening. But Overwatch 2, it's been in development for a long time. Like they said they're adding a full story and they fully intend to move people from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. Like they want people to play that game. There's going to be enough content. It was supposed to, I think internally, it was supposed to come out this year, but because of the controversy, they pushed it out to next year. But that came before the acquisition. That came in 2021 that they announced that Overwatch 2 wasn't coming out in 2022.
But what I did hear as well is that Overwatch 1 and 2 are compatible in the sense that the multiplayer is the exact same. So if it's the exact same...
Yes and no, because Overwatch, there's no longer 6 people. Overwatch 1 has 6 people. Overwatch 2 has 5 people. And that I know it's like that doesn't sound like the craziest thing in the world, 6-5, but it changes things a lot. It changes that dynamic because that game is very team based. It changes the gameplay a lot from removing it to 6-5 players.
Oh, so basically, Overwatch 2 stays. I mean, it goes exclusive, right? I think that's fine. Here's the thing. I'm sure it's a big game. I mean, I've heard of Overwatch. I just haven't really played it. I just don't really care about it too much. But I know it's a big game, so we can put that as a potential exclusive or not. Call of Duty, Dan.
Man.
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Does that go exclusive?
I think that the baseline game does. I think that the campaigns and the single player ones, I think that those those are going to be exclusive, and the multiplayer's attached to those. I think Warzone will stay cross platform, and I think that they'll continue to support it and just like upgrade it and update it, and like they'll be I don't know if they've already done a next gen version of Warzone. If or when they do that, I think that'll still be cross platform, and I think that that'll continue because like when you're doing 100 people lobbies, it just makes more sense for it to be everywhere. Like if Xbox woke up tomorrow and bought Epic and they had Fortnite, like that's still going to show up on PlayStation 6 and Switch 2 or whatever. You know what I mean? And I feel like Warzone is kind of in that same category. But I think the base games after this one for this year will probably be exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would actually agree with that. I think single player wise, it remains exclusive. I think.
Oh, sorry. You finish.
No, go ahead. I mean, if you're gonna disagree, let me know. So I can come back and put you back down.
I actually think they're not gonna make. I don't think they'll keep Call of Duty. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna make Call of Duty exclusive. What I see happening is Xbox making Sony look like, honestly, assholes for making. I feel like what they could do is they can make Call of Duty games drop day one on Game Pass, and then have it where it's like, yeah, it's multi-platform, but you want to play it on Xbox because you get it for free. You're gonna have to pay $70, or you could pay $15.
I heard this argument a lot. I have a response for it, but Dan, I'm gonna let you go for it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that, like, regardless of whether or not they end up making Call of Duty exclusive, it's definitely gonna launch on Game Pass day one. So like, regardless, it'll be a good thing for them. I even think the one this year that's for sure still going to be on PlayStation will probably be in Game Pass day one.
I think it's a win for Microsoft, of course, if it ever appears in Game Pass. The argument about we can drop it on PlayStation, and then people are gonna look at it and say, oh well, on Microsoft side it's on Game Pass, so let's go there. I think that argument is kind of false. What I do see people moving over is, I think it's very minuscule, because I feel like PlayStation gamers want to play on their preferred platform, which is PlayStation. They're not really going to go buy a new console per se just to play it on Game Pass day one when they can buy it. It's kind of like, for example, right? Think about Elder Scrolls. If that comes out on PlayStation, it sells millions on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. I don't think somebody looks at that and says, okay, well, I can pay $60 for it on PlayStation, or I could go buy an Xbox and play it there. I don't really think so. Like my friend, like, he did consider a Series S, so it does happen. But ultimately, just like, I might just get on PC. But as soon as you tell him it's on PlayStation, he's gonna eat that cost and he's gonna get it on PlayStation. That's just the way people think. I don't think it's really. I heard the argument so much. I don't think it really happens like that.
Because the people we're talking about here are casuals, because it's Call of Duty.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like, if I would say now PlayStation has more of a hardcore gamer fan base. If you're talking about the casuals, the people that are like, I prefer convenience over like keeping my games and like just caring about the medium like that, I feel like it would be a win-win. I think it would pull people. So I would say obviously PlayStation doesn't have, it's not all hardcore. They have casual, but I think this is again going to pull those casuals away, because if Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is a lot of people's game still. Somehow it will never be mine anymore. Got past that when I was like 15. I was done with Call of Duties, but like there's still a lot of people that are sweating on that game nonstop. So I don't know. That's just what I think. I feel like it would bring people, but we'll see. You do have a point.
What I do get that point. I think the thing is the fact that they're casuals that I think is a bit iffy, because I don't think casuals look too much into these things or care as much. You need to make it known to them that this is not the de facto console. That's not Xbox. Because if a casual sees a trailer for Call of Duty and it's not on PlayStation, which is, and the first question they're gonna ask is why? Where is it? They're gonna go there. But if it's on PlayStation, they're gonna get it on PlayStation, which is their de facto console. You need to take it away from them. Now you could take it away and then drop it 6 months later, so like a timed exclusive. I think that could work. But if you drop it on PlayStation as well, day and date, nah, I think you're hurting yourselves. I think Microsoft needs to kind of, if the goal is to grow Game Pass, you can't get the biggest casual game and have it being able to play somewhere else. You can't. Like, we talked about Starfield and Elder Scrolls being exclusive to Game Pass, and that's because it's gonna bring in subscribers. Now you have one of the biggest casual games ever, and you're gonna go drop it somewhere else. Like you'd have better luck dropping Elder Scrolls somewhere else. I think Call of Duty brings in a lot more subscribers.
I can agree with that. I sort of agree with both of what you're saying. Honestly, it's like if it wasn't exclusive and it was just on Game Pass day one, like that's going to draw a good number of people. But I think when you look at the especially in the console front, what they're getting out of this acquisition, the biggest thing is obviously Call of Duty, right? And I think if you take that off the PlayStation platform, I think that's something that's not just going to grow Game Pass. That's something that could grow Xbox as a brand itself. You know what I mean? Like it would just be a really big deal. Especially, whenever Bethesda was purchased, I just fixed file. Yeah, honestly. Whenever Bethesda was purchased, I had a conversation with a coworker of mine because we were talking about the next gen consoles, and he was saying like, "Oh, I'll wait until the next Fallout game comes out, and then I'll buy the PS5." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's probably not going to be on PlayStation, because Xbox just bought them." And he was like, "Oh, well, then I guess I'll buy an Xbox." And for him, like, it was just that easy. Like there's not really like normal people don't really have like brand loyalty to a specific console, And I think that as much as I love Fallout, I think that conversation happens a lot more if the game being talked about is Call of Duty. You know what I mean? Especially when you compare that, when you add that to the fact that like Series S are in stores, like they're able to make so many more of them because they're smaller and they take less silica. So like if you compare it, like if a casual goes into a Target and they're like, there's no PS5s here, there's no Series X's here, there's some Series S's, and that's one of the only places that I can play Call of Duty, I think that decision is like, it's done. Like that's not even a thought process.
So yeah, it goes back to this was a seismic move. This was a really big move. It
was, and like I said, like when I posted this comment on Reddit, I was like, yo, it was a big move. It was dope, but on the face of it, does nothing for me. And one of the guys came back and was like, what you mean? And I just had to explain to him that like I was like, yo, man, listen, think about it. If they bought like EA, for example, that's Dragon Age, that's Mass Effect, that's Titanfall, that's Battlefield, those are 4 dope IPs already, and they got more. I'm just saying, like, those are off the top of my head. They got FIFA as well. You got the Madden stuff. And then, if you like, for me, and this is what I try to tell him, I was like, forget about, EA for a second. Obviously, like, forget about Capcom. You don't care about Resident Evil. You don't care about Devil May Cry. Fair enough. Forget about Sega. You don't care about Persona, Shinigami, all this kind of, forget about all those kind of stuff. Yeah. I just said, what about Take-Two? Like, can you imagine, Grand Theft Auto, the next installment, exclusive to Xbox? And can you imagine Red Dead Redemption 3? Because before all this, everyone was saying, "Oh, Call of Duty sucks. Call of Duty sucks. No one cares about Call of Duty." You know what I mean? And like we could say like, okay, we have the GTA series, which are like very highly valued because they're seen as great games, and the multiplayer is obviously really dope as well. And then you have Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. Like, can you imagine if those two were Game Pass exclusive? Like that's what, as a console player, that's probably what you're going for. I don't know about this StarCraft nonsense. I'm just joking. I don't know about all these other games. Like I'm like StarCraft. I'm sure it's big. I couldn't tell you.
It's very big in certain markets, I would say.
Exactly. I think in Korea it's huge. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a sport in Korea.
I think it's I think it's a good push on that side. I think it's great, but I'm like, but I ain't involved in the Korean markets and I ain't involved on the PC side of things. And then people are talking about, I mean, I don't care. Candy Crush is probably like one of the biggest IPs. Like, I don't care about that. I don't play that stuff. That's not for me. Like all these games that they were listing, I was like, I don't play none of these things. So if I'm Jim Ryan, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking that's a good move. Was that the best move to hurt us per se? No, it wasn't, because you could have used that money and you could have taken Battlefield, FIFA, Madden, Mass Effect, Dragon Age. You could have taken Red Dead Redemption 3. That's gonna be big. You could have taken the next GTA. And GTA and Red Dead Redemption are the two biggest selling entertainment launches ever, isn't it?
What? Yeah.
GTA and Red Dead Redemption 2 were the two biggest entertainment launches. That beats like what, Marvel, anything we've seen, Titanic. Yeah. You could have taken those and you went for these games, these PC games that we're not involved in the PC market. Yeah. And it's sorry, go ahead.
No, finish what you're saying. That's fine.
Because Sony is not even involved in the PC market. It's not like, for example, there's even competition there. Because if you were to buy, Starcraft, for example, right? It's not going to stop you from buying God of War. Like, I don't think PC gamers think in this console war kind of centric of like, oh, I hate Halo, I'm going to mess with PlayStation games. I think they buy everything. I think if it's a good game, it's a good game. Maybe they're more mature in that aspect because it's just a game, I mean, why are we taking sides? So, like I said, I explained this to the dude, and he just said like, yeah, well, that's your opinion. I'm like, yeah, but it's probably yours too.
Yeah,
it's probably yours too, bro.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think I mean, it sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where it's like, in terms of me personally, right? This acquisition doesn't really change a whole lot for me, right? Because it's like,
wait, sorry, real quick, is Halo Wars dead? Because they have StarCraft.
If anything, I would say maybe the team that made StarCraft will now also make Halo Wars.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
Of course, they have an RTS studio now. They have World's Edge, so they might make Warcraft and Age of Empires and Halo Wars, and then just leave StarCraft to the guys who have already made it super popular in other markets. But like, I do think that goes back to sort of what we were talking about before, where it was like, yes, in terms of us specifically, like the things that we care about, I think that this acquisition doesn't really do a lot for us, because like, I can't speak for you guys, but like, World of Warcraft, I haven't played that since like middle school. Call of Duty, I haven't played since Black Ops. Like these are things that I think a lot of people are having a lot of fatigue with, especially people who are more ingrained in the game space. But so like for me, if they went and they bought Sega, and it's like, oh, now the next Persona game and the next Yakuza game, and like if they went and they bought EA and now all the BioWare games are exclusive to Xbox, like those are things that make a huge difference to me personally, because those are the games that I play, that I care about. But I think that this is a play sort of like, okay, if you say that World of Warcraft is now an Xbox exclusive, that's sort of there's a very loud airplane. If you say that like World of Warcraft is now a console exclusive to Xbox, then that's sort of an answer for Final Fantasy 14, right? And if you combine World of Warcraft being an Xbox game and StarCraft being an Xbox game and Overwatch and all of these games that are really popular on the PC marketplace, and then you get Candy Crush, which is really popular in the mobile marketplace, then what you've sort of done is you've taken mobile gamers and PC gamers and you've kind of made them Xbox gamers. You know what I mean? So like in terms of just the reach that they hit, I don't think that there's a bigger purchase they could have made.
I also think Spartacus is not even have a chance.
I would even disagree with that.
I think Spartacus will be really good.
Because it's gonna if to be honest, this is me personally. If PlayStation isn't, which they most likely aren't, if they're not dropping their games day one, why do I need it? Because to be honest, I only use my PlayStation 5 PlayStation for me is becoming more of like a boutique kind of thing. I only play it for the exclusives. So the Spartacus, I know that's not what it's called. That's just the code name. Spartacus is adding backwards compatibility. They're most likely going to reach out to third-party publishers, even though now they're becoming fewer. They're probably going to reach out for them for day one drops. But it's just, I have to see what multiplayer games they're going to offer, and what the whole service is going to offer. But I just don't see how this could. Obviously, it's meant to compete with Game Pass, maybe not to the full extent, but it's meant to do something. It's meant to do something. It's in retaliation of Game Pass's success, but I just don't think right now what they have or what the details are. I just don't think this is a good way to get the ground running. I don't see especially with this news, I think it was really a kill shot. I don't know how this would ever reach the same capacity of Game Pass, because how much this deal even further, even distanced the gap between it. It was like Netflix, Game Pass was like Netflix the first like 4 years of Netflix, where it was just dropping third-party stuff. And then all of a sudden Xbox got to a point where they become Netflix from like 3 years ago, where they could just start dropping original content almost every week. Like now they're becoming daily. Now they're daily already. They're dropping new content every day on Game Pass. Tomorrow we're getting Rainbow Six Extraction. We're getting a whole bunch of games. I just don't see how Spartacus is going to compete with now, especially after 2023, when Activision Blizzard get fully ingrained, because we know, just like with the Bethesda deal, they started adding Bethesda games before the deal even closed. So we're probably going to get more games from Activision Blizzard by the end of the year already. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely, the fight for Spartacus is going to be pretty hard. Like, it's going to be absolutely an uphill battle. They're going to have to be spending a lot of money and going out of their way a lot to get content on that platform that's going to rival the consistency in terms of just number that Xbox is going to be able to put on there now. I don't think that like Spartacus will be a failure by any means, though. If PlayStation Now right now is pretty awful and a lot of people subscribe to it. So if they just improve that, even if they don't do day and date, even if they don't do, increase the backwards compatible stuff or like make more stuff downloadable, I think they'll still be fine. I don't think that it'll necessarily overtake Game Pass, but I don't think that they need to worry about like, oh, well, we should just cancel this now or whatever,
I think Jackie's bad. He says, do we think PlayStation will go the way Nintendo has sort of gone, being solely for exclusives, while Xbox has the big AAA third-party stuff? I mean, we could say that, but Nintendo kills everyone still.
That's true.
I mean, so if PlayStation goes, I mean, that's still a win for them. Mm-hmm. The reason why I think PlayStation now, before all this, I thought Jim Ryan. I always bring this guy up because I think he's really good at what he's doing. I feel like they're moving really fast. I don't think 6 or 7 years ago we would have thought, we would have seen PlayStation games on PC. And obviously they're doing the whole okay, let's do PlayStation, let's do Spartacus now. So I think I might have mentioned this to you before, Dan, about it's all about restructuring. If Sony decides to go all in on their version of Game Pass, well, then you don't see Final Fantasy coming out as an exclusive for 2 years. What you see though, you see a similar Xbox model, because remember they're copying them from the PC side of things and also from the Game Pass model. So instead, you see Final Fantasy as a year exclusive or 6 months exclusive, but it arrives in day and date on PlayStation Spartacus. That money is repurposed. We don't care about 2 years anymore. It's the same way Microsoft doesn't care about a 2-year deal. They want it on Game Pass, so they reach out to the game that got delayed.
There's been a lot.
Stalker 2.
Oh, okay.
They reach out to guys who made Stalker 2, and they get it for 3 months, but it's on Game Pass. I think that's the deal Sony makes. So the question is, does Sony have a lot of third-party deals? And yes, they do. They have Forspoken, so that's maybe a year or 2 year deal. But now because we're focused on Spartacus, it's maybe a 1 year deal or 6 month deal. Same thing for Final Fantasy. Same thing for other third party. Same thing for Knights of the Old Republic. So the question is, I mean, so they do have these third party deals. So I think I'm not afraid that they wouldn't have games on their subscription service, because we already know they do. Like PlayStation now does have some games. It's not as good as Game Pass for sure, but what is good though is PlayStation Plus. They get some good games, and those deals are quite similar. If PlayStation Plus, if there's 30 million subscribers on PlayStation Plus, it has to be similar, because that means your game has, that means 30 million people have access to your games. So I feel like it's not that much of a stretch or reach for Sony to actually do this, to get third-party games. And the truth is, do you really need that many third-party games if like we look at you as, let's say, the Disney? If Horizon's coming out on February, I'm subscribing. If that's day and date, I'm subscribing. And I'm not gonna unsubscribe. And I'm not gonna unsubscribe, because then I'm thinking, okay, what other games do you have for the months that I can do? And then if you start throwing all these other old games, like maybe Final Fantasy, I'm like, okay, well, Days Gone is there. I never played it. Let me give it a shot. Then, okay, Spider-Man's there. Let me give it a shot. And then that ties me over onto God of War. And then so I don't think you unsubscribe, because I signed up for Disney Plus. I mean, like, they didn't have much. They had Mandalorian and The Winter Soldier and all these kind of things. But I stayed because there was some content, and I think Sony's gonna have the content, so I'm not too worried. And that was the thing I was saying about Microsoft. If Sony turns around and goes full on to with this model of Spartacus Game Pass model, then I think Microsoft is a little bit of trouble. But I
agree with what you're saying. Like, if PlayStation does all those things, which I think they probably will, maybe not immediately, but at some point, that I think that they will probably do day and date. Maybe not day and date on PC, but if they do like, a Game Pass style thing, I think that they'll do day and date on that at least, and maybe just charge slightly more. But the thing that gets me is like, so yes, if they start doing that, even if they don't really, probably I'll subscribe to it and just have it, because that's, gaming is part of what I do, right? So for probably all three of us, that's something like, if they were just like Horizon Forbidden West is going to be in there, then like all three of us are going to subscribe to that without doubt, right?
100%.
The thing that gets me is, I think, because they will be successful with that, like they'll make money, no problem. Like, I just don't think that they will necessarily win with it. I think that if you compare, like, we're going to have all these really good single player games, and people who care about gaming are going to go and play those. Like, that's great, and that will be super successful. But when you compare that to like how many people are going to come into Game Pass to play Call of Duty, or how many, like, if you roll in like World of Warcraft subscribers into that, right? Like, I think that we're just talking about two different ideas. Like, when we look at PlayStation, it would be like they would have to put something out every single month, or buy something every single month to be in there, to make people want to continue to subscribe. And most people probably would, just because they would forget that they have it, which is another factor to this, of course. But when you think about the kind of games that Xbox is putting into Game Pass, you think about, they're all like ongoing, right? You're talking about like Sea of Thieves, we're talking about probably Warzone, and like all of these ongoing multiplayer type things that sort of have a community that lasts beyond like, we're going to play this game and then we're going to talk about this game a lot. You know what I mean? And I think that
across real quick is just Barney says, I'm currently subbed for Game Pass, but the PC client is horrible. And I remember you were telling me about this thing called Battle.net.
Yeah, so man,
Jim Ryan again.
I don't know. I swear to God, it's they only fly over the apartment when I'm on positive. But anyway, so the Game Pass on PC, the client for it is rough. Like, it's not good. And really the Microsoft storefront on PC has kind of always been bad. It's better than it was, but it's still bad. But you know, if you can just basically take the Battle.net launcher, which is, I think, probably one of the better ones. I think it's like second or third in terms of like launchers that people are familiar with and happy with already. And you just basically slap a Game Pass section in there. I think, you know, that's a done deal. Like, I think that's a problem solved immediately.
So, what do you guys think? All right, because everyone's like, hey, they should buy Capcom. I know you guys mentioned it before, but what do you guys think they should, who they should buy or get bought out by? Sony, if that was ever
okay. I think probably if we're talking publishers, I think probably the most likely target for them would be Square, because they already have such a huge relationship with Square. Like, we've been hearing about them buying up exclusivity for basically every Final Fantasy game and like all that kind of stuff. So I could see that happening. I don't know that those games necessarily fit sort of Sony's MO right now in terms of like big blockbuster type stuff. But it would definitely, you know, up their numbers immediately. And I think that that's very important. I honestly don't know that PlayStation necessarily needs to make a purchase. You know, I think that Xbox will at this point absolutely outsell PlayStation in America. You know, they almost did that during the 360 era, and that was happening while the Red Ring of Death was a thing. So like, if now it's like we own Call of Duty, I think it's done. But he just doesn't want me talking.
Now this is Phil. He's coming after Ty.
He's coming
after Ty, man. He's trying.
He's in the wrong country, but he's heading there. He'll be there soon.
See, the thing is, I'm actually gonna help Phil out here a little bit as well, because I know, like you asked, because Joshua says as well, I think Sony should buy Square. The reason why I sort of disagree with that is because I don't think Square likes Microsoft. I think that they don't want to play with Microsoft. I think they see Sony as like the big homie or something, right? So I feel like these deals are always going to be easy for Sony and Square to make. Here's why I feel like basically what's happening is this: is that Square has gone over to Microsoft and say, you want Final Fantasy? You're going to have to pay us ridiculous money. It's never going to be worth it. And I feel that's exactly what's happening. So if that's what's happening, I mean, like Final Fantasy, Forspoken, like Sony already has that locked up. You know, like if they buy Square, like what do Xbox players miss per se, or PC play? I mean, it's not even on the console in the first place, so it's not really anything crazy for them. I think out of all the publishers, I feel like you got to go for some. Like, I mean, if you were to go for Take-Two, I think that's big, because I think if you get Grand Theft Auto and you get Red Dead Redemption, you know, as an exclusive game, then voila, now you have these AAA blockbuster games that everybody loves, whatever. So I think that is there, and I think GTA has that casual element to it as well. If you go for EA, well, I think you get some, you know, so you get some good IPs, and also more importantly, you get the FIFAs, the Maddens. Well, maybe not FIFA anymore, but you get the Maddens, you get the sports titles. I don't know if like Capcom doesn't make sense to me. I think like I saw the list on the others just didn't make sense. You want to retain the casual gamers, so you need to go for a casual publisher. So I'm thinking even like Ubisoft, primarily EA or Take-Two. Those three are the only ones that make sense. And that's why I was saying earlier to you guys that if I'm Sony, I'm thinking, yeah, but you know, you took Call of Duty off the board, but like, that's it. You know, like, was Call of Duty worth 70 billion? Because I mean, to us, that's the main piece. But,
right.
But everything else you got, I mean, Battle.net, like irrelevant to us. All these PC games we're in the PC space, irrelevant. Mobile, I mean, Candy Crush, irrelevant to us. Like you only really affecting us with Call of Duty.
I do think you're going to see those PC games coming to Xbox, though.
So here's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
this is the next part I was gonna be. I cannot. I'll get to you in a second. I was gonna get to this point.
Yeah.
At some point, if they manage to get these IPs and these, these PC games that I don't even know how they look like, I just don't like to sell well. They manage to get them and create like an Xbox version. Then I think obviously Microsoft's IP scope is huge. I mean, now they have like top quality games. So I think that's where I think it's maybe a bit dangerous on the Sony side of things. And that's just it. But anyways, sorry, Ken, you were saying?
No, it was just to going back to the point of what they should buy. Everyone brings up, now this is just me, because all right, let me just explain. What is Sony's number one best selling exclusive?
Probably Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, right? Okay. So with that being said, I think I'm a big superhero guy.
Right.
I always wanted them to buy WB Games, because if they have both the most popular comic book brands, they would have both Spider-Man and Batman, both the most recognizable superheroes, and then they have the most recognizable supervillain, Joker. They have all of that. And superheroes, we're living in the age of that stuff. Everyone goes crazy. I think it would be a good move if they bought WB Games so they could get the DC license. I didn't see a lot of people bring that up, but I feel like that would be a good buy for them, because Sony's been killing it with superhero games. And if Sony's in command, we know what Rocksteady could do. You give them to Sony, where Sony's like, all right, we give you the time, we'll give you the budget, all of that stuff. Who knows what we could get? Like, I would love if Sony was like, all right, Insomniac, Rocksteady combined with each other and make a Superman game. That would be awesome. Right. That would be the best thing. Like, these Superman games so difficult to do, but you could do so much stuff with superhero games. I know some people are getting fatigued from it, but Sony games are they're on a whole nother level. Sony has the best single player games. And if you add DC to it, oh man, I think it would be great. It would be a great market, a great niche to have for Sony.
Ken, before we comment on that, Dan, could you comment on this? Do you think the price of WoW will change? The PC pass is just $10 and the WoW sub is $12. That's a good point.
I would say definitely not until the purchase is done. So it's going to be another year of that probably same price. I think isn't console Game Pass more than 10? Isn't it like 15? I could see console Game Pass going up to 15 and then just including a World of Warcraft subscription.
Ultimate is 15.
I was actually gonna get to the whole Game Pass thing, but before we get to that, what you said about WB Games, I didn't think about that. I think you make a good argument. Here's the thing about these IPs. Will Sony own these IPs, or are they leasing it like Spider-Man?
That's true.
It's tough,
That's true.
Right?
Because so go ahead, man.
No, I think that they could buy those IPs specifically for games, because a lot of times it'll be like, oh, they own Spider-Man for video games, but they don't own Spider-Man for movies, which is actually the opposite for Sony. They own it for movies, but they don't own it for video games. They're actually licensing it for that, which is neat. Which is really weird, yeah. And I think that that's definitely something that they would want to do, either buy the license to it, or obviously they would license it if they bought Rocksteady and they weren't licensing DC properties for them to work on. I don't know what the point is. I guess maybe you could have them do Marvel stuff, which they'd probably kill as well. But I think that buying WB would be big. I don't necessarily see it happening. I just don't think the relationship is there. When you look at the history of WB games, historically, if they were skewed one way or the other, they were more towards Xbox. And I think it was Jackie or somebody earlier was saying that like the other thing, it's not just about how much the company costs. It also matters, whether they're willing to sell, which is I think why we're probably not going to see Take-Two getting bought, because they're doing purchases of their own. Like they're buying Zynga, like they're trying to become their own huge publisher, and I just don't think that they're necessarily looking to sell. I think that it makes, if PlayStation wants to make a reactionary purchase to sort of try to level the playing field back out, I think that they need to buy something that like is big in a way that is almost incomprehensible. Like if they could buy like Riot and get League of Legends, I think that would be massive for them, right? And would it necessarily like fit their MO of like big single player blockbuster games? No. I think if they want to do more of that, then Take-Two would kind of be the direction to go, provided that they're looking to sell. But I think that probably their best bet is to buy either smaller, single studios, or like bigger single studios. I just mean smaller in that they're not publishers, or finish off the deal with Square, or do Capcom, one of those Japanese ones that I feel like would never sell to Xbox regardless.
Yeah, I feel I think that's a good point. I never thought about Riot. I don't because I think for them, they need to do what they do best, and so I think Take-Two makes the most sense. And this is the next question I got a lot of questions actually, to be honest, but the next question I was gonna ask you guys is that, do you think this sparks off? How does this affect the gaming space? Do you think Microsoft is going to purchase more developers or publishers, or do you think this is it for them? Like they're thinking that's 70 billion. We gotta like fall back a little bit and take it easy.
Absolutely, they're going to do more purchases than this. I think that this is going to, take up their time for probably until the thing is done. I don't necessarily think we're going to see another acquisition, this year, because this is going to take every lawyer they have to get all this paperwork done, frankly. And, but, there's been a lot of people throwing around like, are they getting too close to a monopoly? And I think that a lot of that, doesn't really make sense. Like I don't think that really holds water. You look at some of the other industries in entertainment, you look at like movies where 50% of every movie that comes out is somehow owned or touched by Disney, and like it's like, if that's okay, I don't think that this is a problem. Really, honestly, at this point, Nintendo and PlayStation are so big by themselves. Like Nintendo doesn't even really get third-party deals, and they're in first place. So like monopoly means a sort of lack of competition. Nintendo is a competition within them. So like I feel like Xbox could buy every other third-party publisher that exists, and it still wouldn't necessarily, and that's not going to happen. I don't want to scare anybody. That's never going to happen. But like they could buy almost every single other third-party thing that exists right now, and I don't think it would necessarily be a monopoly, because like I'm still going to go to Nintendo to play Pokemon and Mario, and I'm still going to go to PlayStation to play God of War and Spider-Man and all those things. I think that people sort of conflate the idea of monopoly with the idea of there being a clear winner. You know what I mean? Like if it's just that like, oh, they own all of these things and the majority of my playtime is going to be on Xbox, like that's not a monopoly.
Yeah, no, I don't think they understand. Isn't a monopoly like one company like owns everything? Like
you have
the dominant force.
You have to prevent the other business from doing business. So like if it stops the competition from doing what they're doing, then it would be considered a monopoly. Like if Sony couldn't sell their games or something like that, then it would be, because of this deal, then it would be considered a monopoly. But there's no preventing Sony or Nintendo.
But it isn't even like, okay, so when we even think about this monopoly situation, we're talking about gaming, not just console gaming, right? So that's like the mobile. I mean, and then at that point, it's like, well, come on. Like, I mean, the PC side of things, and we've got the mobile side of things. Like, there's some big players out there. So I think it's all going to pass. But Jackie's Bad says something that I think is an interesting talking point. Do we as gamers, consumers, really want Sony and Microsoft buying out a bunch of companies and making them a bunch of exclusives? And I think that's a really good question. And my answer to that is no.
Yeah, no.
I don't, I was really happy, and I said this as well. I was really happy when Microsoft were kind of like stepping in, doing things, and like they were gonna, they went to go purchase Bethesda. When this deal came, with the whole Activision thing, a part of me felt like, that's 70 billion. That's a lot of money. Like like that. Yeah. Is this really where it's gonna be going? Because now I'm thinking about the knee-jerk reaction. Is Tencent gonna say, "Oh, is that the game we're playing now? All right, let me go do my own too as well." And then is Sony gonna then say, "Okay, I'm gonna go get Konami, I'm gonna go get Capcom," and at some point it's like, guys, take it easy. So it's kind of like who opened the box, and that's why I think it's gonna be tricky, man.
And so this is something that's pretty normal in bigger and industries like this. Honestly, is an industry will grow and grow and grow, and then all of a sudden there'll be a consolidation. Everyone will start buying up stuff to try and one person will buy something, and then the other person will be like, well, now we're not as big as them, so we got to buy something. And then it just goes around until there's like 4 or 5 major players left. It happens across the board in all industries, really. And so to that respect, I think this is almost to be expected. These things being bought up, in a way, it kind of opened, like, this has happened before, is what I'm saying, in gaming. It happened like around the PS1 era, and then a lot of the people who were big at the time split off, started their own companies, and now those companies are EA and Ubisoft and like all these big companies that we know now. So in some ways, I don't necessarily want it to happen, right? Because I think that a lot of the companies that exist right now are better off just doing their own thing. And I like having, Assassin's Creed be everywhere. I like having the sports titles be everywhere, So for me personally, I agree that I don't necessarily want a ton of these big purchases to keep happening. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, right? Like the Bethesda purchase, I think, is a bigger deal in terms of like, taking things away from other platforms than this one was, right? Because you look at it and it's like, Bethesda was one of the only major third-party publishers who consistently put their games on Switch, right? Like Doom showed up on Switch and a bunch of stuff, right? And then you look at like every single game, for the most part, that Bethesda made also showed up on PlayStation. Whereas that's not necessarily the case with the Activision Blizzard purchase, right? It's basically just Call of Duty and like Crash, right? And everything else is kind of affecting different markets. So I think a lot of the people being more upset about it right now are, it's a reactionary thing. I think when people take a step back in like a week from now and sort of look at it, they'll be like, this is a big purchase in terms of money, but in terms of like its effect on the industry, I actually don't think it's that huge.
Ken, your thoughts on that?
Real quick, this is probably gonna be my last thing because I gotta go. But what was the original question? Like, what was the original question?
Do we want all these publishers do we want these big corporations going around buying every publisher and developer? Do you think it's gonna harm the industry in the long run?
I feel like it would, in terms of new players coming in and competition. I definitely feel like the competition is just going to become less. It's going to be more difficult because you're just going to have a few people at the top, and especially when you look outside, when you look outside of it and you get away from the gaming aspect, it's like it's really becoming more like those dystopian Blade Runner, where there's only a few corporations that own everything. Like it's Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tencent. Like now Microsoft it really proved that there's levels to this. Like Sony, you got us when you're looking one-to-one with gaming, you got us there. But when it comes to rolling with the big boys, like you're not there. Like you're not really close. You can't roll with us. You're not in the house. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of just a few owning a bunch. That's just me.
Yeah, and I do think also that a lot of the bigger, third-party publishers, I don't expect them to sell really to anyone without, hostile takeover. Like, we've seen Ubisoft fight off takeovers before. I don't see EA selling necessarily. I don't think Take-Two will sell. WB, I think that's the questionable one, because we've already heard that they're looking to sell, and now they're also looking to sell, like, the CW channel. So, like, WB is probably going to get bought by somebody at some point. And who knows how that's going to shake out. But I don't think that we necessarily need to worry about, like, oh, the industry is being consolidated too far, because, like, I don't know. I think it'll sort itself out.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Can you bounce enough?
Yeah,
cool, man.
I gotta go. I gotta go. It was a pleasure. It was always a pleasure chatting it up with you guys, man. You gotta play something from time. You gotta definitely play something.
Absolutely.
From time. All right, see you guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
So I think you're right. It is a scary thing. I think it is a knee-jerk reaction because, like I said, I was talking to these guys and I'm saying, like, how does this affect you? And they're like, Call of Duty's gone, and I'm like, okay, but I tell you hate Call of Duty. And it's like,
right,
yeah, okay, what's going on? One question though that I told my flatmate this. I was like, yo, you might want to get that Game Pass deal real quick, because with this purchase, there's a very high possibility that Microsoft turns this. I mean, I don't think they should. I don't think they will yet, but it's getting closer. I mean, 70 billion is a lot. Like, so at some point you might want to increase that price.
At some point, that subscription price is going to go up. I mean, we've seen Netflix's subscription go up like 3 or 4 times already in the time that they've run. Like, the Game Pass price is absolutely going to go up, especially as they continue to acquire more and more content. Like, it's just natural. I don't think it. I think it's like 15 for Ultimate right now. I don't see it breaking 20. In the long run, and if they bought like so much more, I think it would go up to 20. But even that, I think, is fair, right? Like, that I spend more than that on gaming every month anyway.
Yeah, but you see, if it's 20, like, I'm off it. I'm off it. Even though I know it's a good deal, I'm off it.
That would be 20. That'd be 20 for me. I think your money is worth more over in the UK.
Yeah. Maybe so in that sense. But I do think it's a good point, because I think last year people were talking about, okay, is the price going to increase, and it didn't. But after this purchase, I could really see it kind of happening. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it makes sense. I would want it to increase as well. But I guess the next point that I think a lot of people, maybe it was shadow dropped on purpose, right? They announced Game Pass is at 25 million plus.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind is like, that's really low. I mean, it's based on my perception, my understanding. I thought they were at this point maybe going to be around 28, 29. Because then the question is, how much did Halo bring in? How much did Forza bring in? I thought they were going to flaunt 30 million subscribers, but they didn't. Now, is it a case of we actually have like 29.9 and we're just going to save 25 now, and then at December or whenever we're going to say, hey, it's 34, so it's going to be like, it sounds like a huge jump. I don't know, but I'm thinking 25 doesn't sound as high as I thought. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's weird. It's not impossible that the number is a little bit higher than that. I wouldn't necessarily think that it's like 29 or 30. But if it was like 26 or 27 million and they were just like, it's over 25 million, because like that's a more round, more fun number, then like, sure, maybe. I think a lot of... I don't know. That's about what I would have expected it to be at, to be honest. But I think, if you start... Honestly, I think this acquisition is going to be the thing that really starts setting it off. I think people being able to be like, oh, and if you're subscribed to Game Pass, then you get all these extra skins in Warzone, or like you get your WoW subscription thrown in on that. Like, those numbers are going to just shoot up. They're going to explode immediately.
I heard about Candy Crush that, if you have a Game Pass account, poof, we'll give you discounts or something like that, and then that's gonna bring in a lot of people. I think from a strategic point of view, like there's a lot of things they could do. Like there's many layers to this deal, and as much as I keep coming up with new things, all these layers are, it's me finding out that, like, okay, Microsoft has ways to make more money, maybe ways to get more people onto Game Pass, but obviously, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't It doesn't feel like a deal that really concerned me too much. I really couldn't care about Call of Duty. No, I know, like it was the
Yeah.
best selling game last year.
I mean, I'll probably play it now if it's on Game Pass, but like I haven't
Mhm.
bought a new Call of Duty game since high school.
Yeah.
You know,
And
even
do you,
if they're owned, you know, them being owned by Xbox is not going to necessarily change that for me.
and do you
I'm
imagine?
honestly,
I was gonna say, do you imagine like Microsoft changing the format of that games? And you know what? Instead of
I
every
hope
year, and instead of like
genuinely,
4
yeah.
studios making it, we're gonna switch that up.
Yeah, well, because I think you combine the fact that there's so many people who are kind of fatigued by Call of Duty and like tired of. I mean, look how well Assassin's Creed has done since it stopped being annual. Like the last 3 games have been significantly larger and more or less loved, you know, pretty much unanimously. I think Valhalla had some like technical issues that a lot of people complained about, but you know, those ended up getting ironed out. I think that, yeah, I think as soon as this acquisition goes through, I think that probably some of those teams are going to stop making Call of Duty games. Ravens for sure. You know, I don't think that they ever wanted to make Call of Duty. I think they're probably going to spin back out into doing RPGs like they used to do because that's sort of what their DNA is. And then I wouldn't be surprised if like Treyarch or Sledgehammer or one of those 3 at least was like, hey, what if we went and did this other thing? And you know, Xbox has historically been very open to allowing their studios to do the things that they want to do, and especially now that there's so much IP being shared between all these different studios, you know, who knows?
Do you imagine a situation where, because the deal came through, of course, you know, I mean, it's gonna come through 70 billion, but there's a lot more
Yeah,
money involved in that because if all these
absolutely.
studios start saying, well, we want to make our own game, now you got to like finance that. Okay, here's 100 million for you, here's 200 million for you, and 300 million. Because I heard someone
Yeah.
say like, oh, like it's gonna get to the point where Microsoft's gonna have all these studios making games, and I'm thinking,
Well, yeah, and on top of that, it's not even just like, oh, now we have to pay for these games being made. It's like, oh, now we have to pay all these people's wages, and we have to pay all of their insurance, and we have to take care of, you know, the electrical bill for all the different buildings and all that stuff. Like, this is a huge undertaking, but you also have to figure that, you know, Activision Blizzard, their problem that they've been having has been a public opinion thing, right? It has not been a financial thing whatsoever. Activision Blizzard is probably one of the more profitable publishers in the industry between Call of Duty and all their mobile stuff, you know? So I think that this is honestly, I think this is an acquisition that kind of pays for itself in the long run. Not immediately, because 70 billion is a shitload of money, right? Like it's going to take a minute for that to come back. But I don't necessarily think that they have to worry about that as much as they have to worry about just getting people back on board with wanting to support Activision Blizzard again after all the things that have come out of them.
yeah. Just a quick one. Anyone in the chat, you guys got any questions? Do let me know, and obviously we can pass it on to Dan as well. Like I said, there's a lot of layers to this, and while I do understand what you said just there in relation to the to the finance of things, I do think that the issue is that these teams might want to create new projects, and they're gonna expect more finance. I mean, they're gonna want it, and I think Microsoft is gonna be in a situation where they might have to. I mean, to keep them happy.
Yeah,
I think it's great, but I guess,
yeah,
I guess maybe my thing is I was just thinking it's a lot of money and it's a lot of studios now, and they have the money to do it, but at some point they just kind of like say, okay, you know what, you work on a smaller project because we're already just giving 100 million there, 200 there, 300 there. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a huge undertaking. I think that the most stressful part is obviously the public relations part, but I think that will sort itself out, because I think everyone understands that, like, okay, now Microsoft is taking over and things are going to be extremely different. So there you go.
And I do think, you know, when they bought Bethesda, they left the publishing hand intact. You know, Bethesda is basically doing Bethesda's thing. Like, they're basically untouched, doing exactly the same things in the exact same ways that they used to do. In this case, I think and hope that is not the case, because Activision Blizzard clearly is having a lot of problems. You know, there's a lot of studios that are owned by Activision Blizzard that don't want to be making Call of Duty, but they were purchased, and so you're going to work on what we want you to work on, right? And I feel like that's so the opposite of what Xbox's whole sort of MO for this entire generation has been, that, you know, I think that that's absolutely going to change. I think that they'll still keep the publishing hand of Activision Blizzard intact. They'll just maybe have some more people move in there to be like, hey, actually, Raven Software, why don't you make the next Hexen game? Or like, hey, Sledgehammer, did you want to make like a different kind of shooter? Are you looking to make, I don't know, do you want to make like a Doom single player? Like,
do you want to make anything else apart from what you have been making for the last 10 years?
Yeah. And I think that in this case, I think that would be a good thing, genuinely. I think that Xbox going in there and being like, hey, this works financially, but it's really shitty for everyone involved on like a personal standard.
Yeah. Josh, I got a question for you. I think we touched on this, but yeah, it says, who do you think is the best and most logical purchase for Sony as an answer to this Microsoft Activision purchase?
So I think the most logical one for them to buy, in terms of which one I think is most likely, I think that is Square, right? I think that they have the relationship there. Them buying Square, I think, would be received similarly to Xbox buying Bethesda, where it's like, oh, that's a bummer that those games aren't going to go over to that other platform now, but this relationship was very clearly there from the start. I think it would be that sort of thing. But in terms of specifically answering, the bonuses that Xbox gets from this purchase, I think that you need something that is just a money printing machine. I think that you need to buy something like Riot. I think you need to buy something that is so big that like people in the industry don't even necessarily talk about League of Legends, but like it's over there just making billions of dollars every day, and we just don't talk about it. We don't think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you mentioned the League of Legends once, and first give my mind, I was like, I don't know that game either. I know it makes money. It's a whole different world out there, but I don't know that game either. To answer your question, Joshua, for me, I think it's either going to be Take-Two or it's going to be EA. I say EA just because I think you kind of need to get that casual. You need your console to be the de facto console where everyone looks to. Okay, casual games. There's the FIFA, there's the Madden, there's all these other games. But the reason I say Take-Two primarily just because it would fit right into PlayStation's MO. It's like, Grand Theft Auto, AAA blockbuster game that's huge. And also Red Dead. I don't know if you get those two. I think those two becomes PlayStation's biggest IPs potentially. Maybe Spyro, but in terms of making money, those two games for sure. Anyways, so yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like those games make. I do think that those games sort of fit the MO of sort of the kind of games that PlayStation wants to make more. I don't necessarily think Take-Two wants to sell. Yeah, I think EA would also be a good purchase. I don't think necessarily Take-Two would want to sell. And I also think, I was looking at this a while ago for like, which publishers could get purchased. I don't actually think Take-Two is that great of an idea, because like when you look at their studios, there's like, I forget the exact number, but for some reason, I think it's like more than 10 Rockstar studios. But despite the fact that there are that many people working on those games, they still only put out like one a generation. Sometimes not even that. And it's
we used to love them for that. Remember? It was like, Rockstar, they take their time and they make an amazing game. But, maybe you're right in the sense that like, I don't know if that was the point you're trying to make, that like, we need a game coming out every couple of years, not once, not one every generation.
Well, that's sort of what we're seeing from PlayStation right now is they did a lot of acquisitions in the last year. It's just they weren't necessarily the most exciting ones. I mean, Bluepoint and Housemarque, like those are more exciting, but the majority of the things that they've been buying were either, smaller VR studios like Firesprite or support studios. Like they're right now, it looks like what they're focusing on is buying things that can help them continue doing what they're already doing faster and better, instead of necessarily increasing output, which is weird because it feels like disparate from them doing their Spartacus thing, because it's like, I don't know. I'm very confused by a lot of the things that PlayStation is doing right now. Like, as an aside, we exist in a time right now where, getting silica is really hard. Like, it's really hard to find a PlayStation or an Xbox on a shelf right now. And so it's very strange to me that they're like, okay, not only are we going to use more silica and increase the production of the PlayStation 4, but we're also going to use the silica to create a new version of PSVR. And it's like, okay, but I still can't find a PS5. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, it just seems like a weird use of resources. I'm very confused by a lot of what they're doing.
I feel like this the pandemic, the whole chip shortage, it messed them up the most. You know, I think Microsoft is a bit like, oh yes, this is great, because I think in 2020 whenever it came out, 2021, I think I think Sony's in a very, very good position, and delaying God of War, delaying Horizon, I think that really hurt them, and obviously gave Microsoft had, like, you know, these knockout punches where, like, oh, what's that game that you guys are making? MLB, bam, now it's on Game Pass. You know, things like that. Yeah, they definitely kicked ass. I think their approach is basically, I think they're moving fast. I think they know what they're doing, in the sense that, like, they do want to keep making these amazing games. I mean, like, everything they're doing is almost in response to what Microsoft is doing. You know, they're going the PC way, they're going the Game Pass way. And, you know, Bethesda, I mean, Microsoft buys Bethesda, and then how many studios does Sony buy? Like, I don't think these things happen if Microsoft doesn't, like, you know, push forward. So what I was saying in the Boom's podcast was that, like, they are being extremely aggressive. They're reacting to what Microsoft is doing, and I didn't expect them to be this aggressive. Like, if you think about it, like, they were going for third. Like, the one thing I always mention people is, like, Microsoft was trying to get Knights of the Old Republic. They were negotiating with them, but Sony outbid them, which means that at some point Microsoft was thinking that's not worth it. But Sony's like, we don't care. Like, we want it that bad. So they got that. They got Forspoken. They got the Final Fantasy. Yeah. And also, like, they have Wolverine. So I think my point is, they're trying to make it seem like their console, or like their ecosystem, is the best. It has the best games possible. And it makes sense, because if I was Jim Ryan, everything he's doing, I'll be doing. Now, how do I respond to this acquisition? Like I said, I probably just try to buy Take-Two, but I don't know if
there's some chairs getting thrown in some boardrooms at Sony. I could say that for sure. You know, they're not thrilled about this. But the flip side of it, and I think it's kind of to the point of what you're saying, is, while I do think that PlayStation will certainly buy something in response to this. They did it when Bethesda was purchased. I can't imagine that they're going to let this one go without buying something, right? I don't necessarily think that they have to. You know, people, I think, are in general very confused about the idea of, like, PlayStation has felt like they've been in the lead for a long time, and purchases like this throw that into question. But even if Xbox sells more consoles than PlayStation, which is a possibility now, PlayStation is still going to be extremely successful. PlayStation 5 will make more money than PlayStation 4. By the end of the generation, like, I guarantee it. You know, we see competition on a very lateral level, where it's like they sold more than these guys, and therefore they won. But, like, in the boardrooms, really, all they really care about is, like, are we making more money than we made last year? And I think that that's still going to continue to happen for PlayStation. So I don't think that they need to freak out. I don't think that they need to, like, oh man, we got to go and buy Ubisoft and EA, and, like, oh, we got to get more studios than Xbox had. Like, I don't think they need to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think, you know, I saw everyone was like, oh, they need to respond, and I'm completely agreement with you. They don't need to. I don't think they need to do anything, really. I think they might need to say, okay, fine. Like, it would have maybe repurposed certain strategies. Like, okay, fine, okay, they have this, and so it means we're not going to get caught. So it means around November time, things might get a bit iffy. So what are we going to do to kind of, like, fill that gap? So I you never know. Maybe it might push them even to, like, to work with other developers. But I think to go buy a publisher or studio, I don't think that's what they're thinking. I think they already had publishers in mind, or maybe even developers in mind, and I think that's probably what they're gonna go for. Konami is a possibility.
Yeah, I don't think Konami would necessarily be, like, the next purchase, though, because I don't think Konami brings with it a lot of development force. I think it really just brings the power of its IP. So I feel like you would need to buy studios that could actually do something with it first.
Yeah, and I feel like basically Sony's strategy of you know what, let's just, we'll develop the game, like, we'll pay
Yeah.
for the game. I think that's, and it's worked out well for them enough. Like, they've been
They're
filling
doing
in these
fine.
gaps, Forspoken and all this kind of guns, Final Fantasy. So I think they'll keep doing that. And from what I can't remember where I read it, but I read something that like Sony has a lot of money to do this. Like, so expect more third-party exclusive games, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's, people don't want to necessarily hear it, but like even last generation when Xbox like screwed up real bad, like they still made more money in the Xbox One generation than they made in the 360 generation when everyone thought that they're like, when everyone was saying that they were winning. Like at the end of the day, like we see success very differently than how they see success. And so like Nintendo's going to be fine, PlayStation's going to be fine, Xbox is going to be more fine than they were yesterday, but the 2 days ago. But like a good thing happening for one company is not necessarily a bad thing happening for another company.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, but I feel like Sony's thinking like, yeah, but we're losing console players. Like, yeah. I mean, that's money going, that's money going away. So that's probably the issue there. But they'll be fine. They don't need to do anything crazy. Like, I went on the PlayStation Reddit page. I went to all these Reddit pages. And I'm just there looking at everyone freaking out, and I'm thinking,
I've definitely been
bad, guys.
going through Twitter just looking at all the memes. They've been really fun.
I mean, I was on Twitter as well, and I was like, I was thinking that's why I was asking, like, is it me, or is everybody like freaking out? Like, I mean, I'm just so calm about it. Not calm, but I don't think it was that big of a purchase, and like I said, every time I ask someone, the question about like, okay, well, what would you prefer? Because here's the thing, like, if I asked you, like, give me your top 5 publishers, Activision was never on that list, and no, this was top 5, and they'll buy it. Like, there is no financial cap. Activision never made that list, never did, because no one really. I mean, because you ask, like, maybe like I said, the typical console gamer, they'll just say, Call of Duty, I hate that game. And that's it, it's gone. No one thinks about the other stuff. Like, no one thinks about Crash, no one thinks about Spyro. Like, I had a list of all of Activision's IPs, and obviously there's the PC client stuff, which is great, but I was looking at the IPs and I was like, nah, there's nothing here that's making me go crazy. Nothing at all.
Like, financially it's a huge thing, right? Like, they're going to make so much money off this deal, right? But it's exactly like what you're saying. When we talk about the purchases that we would have been excited to see, like the studios that we would have chosen to buy, like Activision wouldn't be high on that list. Like, I would have gone Sega because there's so many good things there, and then WB because I feel like that's just such a great fit, and then like, I honestly, I would have probably started listing off like single studios like Remedy before I even got to Activision Blizzard, even though like that would, like, it's a huge get. Like, it's a lot of money, right? It costs a lot of money. It's going to make a lot of money. It's a big deal for a lot of different people, just not for me.
And this would probably be the guys are saying time to switch to Xbox. Yeah, it's a time, man. This probably be the last question. You didn't touch on this on your video,
sure.
Which is, Satya says the metaverse, and I tried to find out exactly what that means. Like,
I have no idea.
I don't know. I was googling everywhere, I couldn't find it, and you don't know either. So I don't know.
I really don't know. Yeah. So like, this idea of the metaverse is a thing that like Facebook, who has now rebranded to Meta, which is a choice I would not have made, is like kind of throwing around this idea of like, everyone sort of participates in life, like with their friends, a lot more virtually than they do in real life at this point. And so we want to make sure to create a space for them. And I think that the phrase, the word metaverse sounds like more than it is. Because when you look at like the definition of how they're defining it, you could argue that like Xbox's ecosystem and PlayStation's ecosystem is already a metaverse. It's just not necessarily one that you like live in. So I don't know. I really don't know what Satya meant by that, and it's questionable.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's like, okay, it's looking at the large, like, okay, you know what, PC guys, console players, we want to get everyone into gaming, and then, you know, maybe we'll release a headset in the near future and we see what happens. But yeah, I have no idea, and I was really hoping somebody could explain, but no,
I really don't. I don't see them making a headset for it. I think it's far more likely that they would just allow for third-party headsets. That seems more likely, just based on how they've been doing it.
They do have HoloLens. I mean, it's not really a VR headset, but I mean, you could maybe say the technology is similar enough. So
yeah, I could honestly see it just being like, we're gonna put VR Game Pass on the Oculus Quest or something. You know what I mean? And then just have it be that.
You know what, man? This was actually the question I had in mind. I was talking to some of the guys about this. I'm thinking about power play moves.
Right.
If you think about it this way, and maybe this is why I feel like this deal didn't do enough. But you know, Call of Duty is heavy. Microsoft wants Game Pass on all these consoles. They want it on Switch. They want it on PlayStation. The reason why you want it on PlayStation is because there's a lot of gamers there. There's like 140 million, whatever it was on PS4, and there's going to be a lot still.
Yeah.
Sony doesn't want it because it's going to compete with their system. Do you think there's a point where Microsoft says to Sony, we have all these IPs. If you allow Game Pass finally on your system, you get these IPs. So what I mean by that is, like, I spoke about this with someone, and you know, he mentioned the streaming element. Of course, there's a streaming element. It's cool. But what if Microsoft makes a deal? You get 30% cut, whatever, whoever who subscribes through the PlayStation client, whatever, that's grand. But games like Elder Scrolls, maybe not games. Okay, for example, let's say Elder Scrolls, Call of Duty. We will make a PlayStation 5 version, and we'll drop it on your console. So you allow Game Pass on your system. We win. You get your cuts. Now you're losing, maybe, because you know the cut's the cut. But we'll also release Elder Scrolls and all these other Call of Duty games on your console, on your console, day and date. And guess what? You still have Spartacus. Because if you still have Spartacus, and think about it, like, you know, this is, we're talking about subscription services now. We have Disney, we have Amazon. I have all 5 of them, or all 4 of them, whatever it is. So maybe at that point, Sony looks at it and says, is this really going to eat into, you know, our service? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but, you know, people are willing to kind of switch back and forth. And at the same time, I think this is the key thing right now. Technically, Microsoft will not have any exclusive games, because it would be on the PlayStation as well. And Sony can brag and say, well, I mean, you can play all these games. I mean, you can play it via Game Pass on our console. But if you want these exclusive games, you're only getting it on the PlayStation console. Does that make sense to you?
So, no. I don't think that Nintendo would be able to do it, because their platforms are always so far behind technologically that the only way you would be able to do it is through streaming. And for most of the world, that's not really actually a good way of playing games right now. Like maybe Japan, but for the most sense, this guy agrees with you. But you know, so I think if the only way that you can get it working on a Switch is streaming, then it's probably not a great idea to even bother, because that seems like a lot of work for not really necessarily worth it. And on the PlayStation side of things, I know that Xbox has specifically said, like, oh yeah, we'd love to get Game Pass on the PlayStation. I don't think they meant that, and I also don't think PlayStation would allow it either. Like, I think that I don't think PlayStation would allow it, because like they're obviously trying to do their own thing with Spartacus. You know, I don't think that they want to have it on there. And then also, I think it's that I think Xbox saying that they want to put it on PlayStation is kind of that thing where, like, oh man, like your mom asks you to go rake up the backyard, but it's raining, and you're like, oh man, mom, I would love to do that, but it's raining. I can't. I'll get sick. You know, it's raining out, and then it stops raining, and she's like, oh, and now you can go do it, and then you're like, ooh, and then you know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like, because I just don't see, other than the boost in subscription numbers, I don't see how it really like fits in with what they're doing. Because like Xbox has also said multiple times that like they're going to continue to make new hardware. But if you put your Game Pass on the PlayStation and the Switch, then it becomes a sort of situation where it's like, then why am I not just buying a PS5 and doing Game Pass through that and getting all the same games, right? And then the other side of it is that, like, that's a whole new SKU. That's a whole new SKU, unless you're also streaming to PlayStation, which would be a really weird choice. That's a whole new SKU that every single one of your first-party developers, which is now a shitload of people, is going to have to develop for, you know? And I don't know. It seems like a lot of work that I feel like would almost be detrimental to the brand. But we'll see. Anything's possible.
The reason why I disagree with you, and we'll finish off with this one. The reason why I disagree with you so much is because Phil has said himself that he wants Game Pass everywhere and he doesn't think people should make exclusives. And I feel the reason why because if you think about it, right, if Game Pass goes on, if Microsoft is going for the subscription model and that's where they see the future is, if Game Pass goes on PlayStation, it's such an amazing deal. They'll subscribe, and that's a win for Microsoft. So I think it's that reason why he wants it. He wants it on the Switch. For the Switch is different because I think you're just gonna stream it only, and that's fine. xCloud it's gonna work. For PlayStation, I think the issue for Sony is that so it's only gonna be streaming, but streaming is not that good in the first place. So I mean, this doesn't make sense to us. Now it's a case of maybe sweeten the deal. You don't have to make every single, first party game on PlayStation. Fair enough, but I think it's games like Call of Duty was normally a multiplat. We'll keep it a multiplat. We're gonna keep some of these other games multiplat. Hell, maybe we'll develop Halo as well for PlayStation 5. maybe we'll do it as long as Game Pass, because he said it himself.
Yeah,
he wants Game Pass. He said, "I want Game Pass there," and he said the reason why these guys don't want Game Pass. That she told him. He said, the issue is they don't want the full version of Game Pass. They want some kind of stripped down version. And he says he only wants the full version. So he wants the full version. I believe he actually wants it there. And if he gets it there, I think obviously Sony understands it's such a power play move. Call of Duty is a big step, but like I said, if they had gotten the EAs, if they had gotten the all these other developers, maybe and all these developers, they make third party. They make games across all the platforms. If you can assure Sony, like, okay, all these games will be, they will remain, third party games or whatever, so you're gonna get on your system, but put Game Pass on PlayStation. I don't know, like, if I'm Jim, I'd probably say no, but that's a good argument. At that point in time, then the Xbox brand doesn't seem that hot. Game Pass seems hot, but the Xbox brand itself, and I think
that's my problem with it, though, is I feel like, the Xbox brand has expanded so much in the last couple of years that I feel like if they did that, it would be kind of a step back, really big step back in terms of like expanding the brand of Xbox. I don't know. I just don't feel it happening. The only way I could see it happening is basically if it's the exact opposite of what you're saying that Phil Spencer said, which he probably did. But like, if there was a version of Game Pass that was on PlayStation that didn't include the exclusives or something, or like was somehow still better on Xbox, I could maybe see that. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely got to be some, if it goes to PlayStation, there would have to be some kind of caveat. Like, I just cannot imagine full-scale Game Pass showing up on a Playstation 5. I couldn't have imagined them buying Activision Blizzard 2 days ago. So who knows, man? Anything could happen.
I'm sure people didn't imagine Sony dropping the games on PC. Like, you're right, anything can happen. I guess it's one of those cases where we'll see. So, I think we're done. Ali, Horizon, Tony, you guys got any questions for us before we bounce off? Barney's gone. I know that Jackie's bad is probably gone. But yeah, man, it was a good chat, and we'll do this again for sure. And to anyone watching, we'll have a proper schedule next time. I know we're kind of all over the place. We're thinking weekends. We'll be on maybe Saturday or Friday. We'll be a lot more consistent. Saturday likely, but a lot more consistent. All right, guys, and thanks for watching. And do leave a comment share your thoughts on what Daniel had to say, what I had to say. I'll drop a link to his video as well. He made a video and pretty much kind of breaking down all the Activision and what Microsoft gets from the Activision deal. It's pretty good. He gave me a lot of insight into what's actually happening, and ultimately I came to the conclusion that I'm not that impressed. I'm not that impressed with the deal. It's a good deal for many reasons. For the mobile space, for the competitive space, all these things that I'm not involved in, so that's why I don't ultimately care. Daniel, you probably care a lot more than me because you actually, I mean, maybe you game on
not
PC.
a ton more.
Do you not play Candy Crush? No.
No, I mean, I played World of Warcraft and I play like Starcraft and stuff every now and then. It's still not like a huge deal for me. I think it's definitely a huge deal for them, which is nice. I think that's the better way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger deal for Microsoft than Sony. It's a bigger deal for Microsoft, and I think on Sony side of things, it's not that big of a deal for them. I mean, it's not as heavy for them. I think Sony's more like me. They're like, "That's the best you got."
I would love to see Jim Ryan say that.
Yeah. Right. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll be back probably next week or so. Ciao.
See you around.